Today we'll be talking about telling time in Spanish. So let's first start with how to translate this phrase, what time is it, into Spanish. Now the most common way I hear is ¿qué hora es? However, sometimes you'll hear this, ¿qué horas son? Both make sense, but I would say for the sake of learning Spanish, and what's probably the more correct one, I would learn ¿qué hora es? But just in case you come across ¿qué horas son?, it also means what time is it? And so real quick, right off the bat, I just want to talk about something, which is the fact that when we deal with time, we're going to use the verb ser. If you remember, there's two ways to say is in Spanish, or to be. It's ser and estar. And you can see that with time, it is going to be using the word ser. And that can be a little weird because time seems like it's something that, is always changing, it's ever moving. But overall, ser is going to be the one that you will always use when talking about anything to do with time, especially with telling the time. And I believe the reason why is just because time is thought of as a constant, ever-moving thing. It's not something that they think of as fluctuating. Because of that, you're going to use ¿qué hora es? Or ¿qué horas son? Not ¿qué hora está? Or ¿qué horas están? That wouldn't make sense. So now let's talk about how to reply to these questions. In every single response, typically you're going to use at a minimum 3 words, but it can be more. It just depends on exactly what time it is. But it's usually going to start with this. It's either going to be es la blank or son las blank. And so when do we use this one and when do we use this one? Well, it's very interesting because in English, every single time we're going to say it is 1 o'clock, it is 2 o'clock, it is 3 o'clock. It's always it is. But in Spanish, when they're talking about a plural number for the time, they actually use son las, which means they are. And so for es la, we would have to use it with una, with one, and anything that could follow. So if I were to say 1:40, that would make sense. But overall, you have to use this one with only when we're talking about times that are in the ones. So I could say it is 1:30, it is 1:40, it is 1:50, stuff like that. Those would all use es la una. But then as soon as I start dealing with plural hours, quote unquote, like 2, 3, 4, anything like that, we're going to have to say son las. And the main reason why is because we are talking about the hours. You can see we're saying la, and that's in reference to hora, right? And so if we're talking about hours in the sense that there's plural hours, of course it would make sense to say son las and then whatever number we're talking about. So for example, if I wanted to say it is 3, we'd say son las tres. And then anything afterwards we can add just like we did up here. So if I wanted to say it is 3:30, son las tres y... And it's very interesting because they don't say 30, they say media. It means 3.5 or half an hour, right? So 3:30 would be son las tres y media. But any other number that we're talking about, if we're saying it is 3:15, we'd say son las 3:15, so on and so forth. And so overall, telling time in Spanish is very interesting, but there are a few misconceptions, and it works a little bit different than English. So I just kind of wanted to point those out today and show you how telling time works in Spanish overall. Thanks for watching.